Hariom everyone, let's start the class. Tattwabodha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आन शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणपतये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारंभं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. The Manglacharan for the text. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnanopradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattwabodho Bhidiyate Tattwabodho Bhidiyate. Okay, so welcome everyone. We are starting this class on Tattwabodha. We had finished the initial part where we had done a study of the different kinds of sadhanas we have to do, how we have to make the mind strong, make the mind capable of holding the knowledge, which is mainly by discipline, mainly by vairagya, that is giving up all our addictions and also focusing it one-pointedness on the subject matter to be studied. So today we have reached the most important part of this topic, Atma Kaha. So we've reached the knowledge about what Atma is. So that we'll take this a bit slowly because there is a lot of things to be understood here and it's not all in the text. So we'll of course take the help of other ancillary texts like the Bhagavad Gita and Drishya Vivek. So I will not quote exactly where everything is coming from, but they are all from similar other Prakaran Granthas and also from my teachers. So we'll start with going back to the text. I'll just bring it up on screen so we can just have a short summary of what we've done so far. So we had finished the part where Atma was discussed in the initial sense in what is not Atma. Atma Kaha, the question was asked, but then the teacher first went into the section where he is telling about what is not Atma, what is Sthul, Sukshma, Karan, Sharir, Vyatektaha, Panchakoshatit, San, Avastatray, Sakshi. And then, of course, he has given the Satchitananda Swarup, which he will elaborate later on. So here first we went into the parts where the different things that we call anatma, what is not atma, or what I think usually of myself as atma is discussed, is told about, so that we can be very clear that they are all as similar to the objects we perceive. Right? So if something I perceive is an object which is not me, then that object obviously is something separate from me. I am separate from that. So all that was discovered because I perceive my body also. I perceive my five koshas also. I perceive my traya, avastha traya, the three states, the dream state, the waking state, and the deep sleep state. So all of these I perceive. So because we perceive all of them, they are not me, they are only instruments of my utility or instruments which I use to perceive the world. So we have seen all these, the five koshas and the avastha traya. So Now we came to a portion which we saw in the previous part, Madhyam Sharira, Madhya Prana, and so on. All the different uh, parts of my Sthul Sharir, Sukshma Sharir, and Karan Sharir. I have to negate them as not me because they are merely instruments by which I used to experience or know the world. And because they are not me, they are separate from me, I can call them Anatma or not Atma. Atma is what is my true nature, which we saw earlier in short, we gave a name for it. It is the invisible inner essence of ours. It is the invisible inner, and we can add infinite to that, which we will logically derive in this class also. So when we look at this Atma, then we saw all of the objects first around me, they are not me. So like if I have a house, it is not me. So if I have an animal, if I have a donkey, then I'm not a donkey, thank God. And so on. Any of the other objects or, pets or even the people I know, which I call they are my relatives, friends, and so on. They are also not me. They are mine. So what is mine is it cannot be me. That is what we discussed. So all of the objects that are different from me, we have separated into a different class, which we will call Jagat, which we will call Jagat. So Jagat is what is the whole universe around me. That includes my own body and the bodies of others. We saw also earlier by logic that if I see someone else, I am seeing their body. So for me, their body is not myself. Is separate from me. It is not Atma. Similarly, for that person also, my body is not Atma. So that means that for them, for that person, whatever is Atma, for me also, whatever is Atma, we cannot see each other's Atma. Atma cannot be seen. So we saw Atma can never become a Drishyam. Atma can never become something experienced. Atma is the experiencer and it is not whatever is experienced. So that means that all the bodies, including my own, are only part of this Jagat only, this world only. So after this, all this has been said, then the student raises his next question. What is the next question? Atma tarhi kaha. What then is Atma? He's like, he's surprised and he's also saying, why are you not telling me? You, if I ask you what is your name or what you are, will you tell me, no, I am not this other person, I am not Ram, I am not Sham, I am not, you will tell about me only. So when I ask about the Atma, tell me what Atma, you are only saying this is not Atma, that is not Atma. Why are you not coming to the point? Please come to the point. So the teacher knows this question is going to come, and he says this way that because we have to also negate first what I think of myself, what I think I am, right? So the whole journey of Vedanta is the study of who am I? Who am I? Knowing my true nature. So for that, first we have to remove the ajnanam, remove the wrong knowledge, we remove the wrong notions that we have about what I am. Because we naturally always think we are functioning through this body, through this mind, through these sense organs. So they are me only. So Atma Tarhi Kaha. So he says, what is this? So the teacher answers, Satchit Ananda Swarupa. So he is given the answer, but the student is still confused. Satchit Anand Swarup. This is another new word for me. How do I know what this means? What is this? So please expand. So he gives it in three short answers. Why I'm reading all of these three? Because we'll be taking up the middle one, because that is the starting point from which we can go to the other three. So what are these three? Sat kim kalatraya tishtati iti sat chit kim jnana swarupah anandakah sukha swarupah. So, what is Sat? What is existence? Existence is what never changes within the 3 periods of time. Kalatraye api tishtati iti Sat. So, this Sat is something that we have to understand. And then again, Chit Kim. What is Chit? Jnana Surup. Chit is of the nature of absolute knowledge. It is not what we call objective knowledge. It is not the knowledge about the objects around me. That is objective knowledge. The chit is the one through which the consciousness is the one through which everything else is known. It is the knower, right? It is the knower. And we know that in all this worldly knowledge, there is the what we call triputi. There is a three connection of three, right? The knower, the known, and the instrument. So, so Gyata, then Pramata, Prameya, and Pramad. So Pramata is the knower, Prameya is the object to be known, and Praman is the instrument. But when I am knowing about myself, then there is no need of any kind of instrument. I don't need any instrument to tell me. I don't need my eyes to tell me that I have the capacity to know things or that I exist. None of these need any kind of external object or external uh, instrument through which we can know. The Atma is always known, and that is the surprising beauty of this knowledge, Atma Jnanam, knowing my knowledge. It is always available to me, yet never does my focus go toward it. I always miss the point. It's like I am missing the what I call the forest for the trees. We see the trees, but we don't see that they are actually together forming a forest. So in this way, similarly, the third portion also, Ananda Kaha. What is Ananda? What is this pure joy? What is this infinite joy? It is of the nature of happiness. Sukha Swarupa. So all joy is a, you can say, reflection of this total Ananda. Reflection of this total Ananda. So we'll go into, first of all, Chit. Right? So Chit, what is Chit? This chit is of the nature of knowledge. Why does my attention not go to it? We do not notice it because my attention is always towards the outside objects, bahar ke. So, like if I tell you, I show you something like this. What do you see? Can you tell what do you see? One by one, all of you tell what you can see. Sima Rekha ji, Anita, Gita ji. What do you see?
Your fingers, fingerprints,
Yes.
the size of your hand, the space it
Yes.
occupies.
Yes, very nice. Pranay, anything else you want to add? Hand. Okay, hand is pretty much clear. I'm looking for something else. Okay. I'm also not asking you to go back through what you are seeing. I'm not asking you that. I'm not asking you seeing through your eyes, your mind, the consciousness that will go into later on. But right now, one thing that never strikes all of you, maybe if someone wants to make one more attempt, Geeta ji, remember something from earlier class? What do you see?
পাহৰি গৈছো।
পাহৰি গৈছে। ঠিক আছে. There's a light here. It's there all the time. It is because of the light that you're seeing the hand, right? But never does our attention go towards the light. So similarly, our consciousness is also a light. It is also a light through which we are able to know anything or see anything or experience everything. And this light is everywhere, right? This light is everywhere. So because of this light, we are not able to because of its subtle nature, we are not able to turn our attention towards the light, right? Even though it's right in front of us, we still miss it, right? So because of that, we are unable, because it is not something visible, or it becomes visible when other objects interact with it. Now, this same light is traveling through the whole of space, but in between space is dark. Why? Because there is no material to reflect the light, right? So in this way, this light is not noticed by us. It is perceived all the time. It is perceived or hamesha available. It is always available, but still it is not perceived by us, right? So before we go on to the nature of this consciousness, before more about this nature, we will just have a short understanding of what we are talking about, the nature of Atma so far here. So every object that we need to know or to need to notice, rather, I will say, we have what we call, there are certain characteristics that can point out the object to us. So there are two ways the Shastra describe. There are two ways of pointing out an object. One is what we call the Swarup Lakshana, and the other is the तटस्थ लक्षण. ठीक है, स्वरूप लक्षण and तटस्थ लक्षण, right? So in the case of the atma, the tatastha lakshan is the what we call anatma, the three sharirams, the three states, then the five panchakoshas, the five koshas, and so on. So these are what we call tatastha lakshan. And swarup lakshan is what we are talking about, sat chit anand. So let us look at it as an example. So if I say that you look at that house over there, or there are so many houses in a row, all of them are of the same color. So then you say, look at that house over there, and there is a crow sitting on top of that. That is the house we have to go to. So when I'm using an external object, the crow, to point out the house, not directly the house itself, then that is called the Tatastha Lakshana, right? And so then if I say there is a greenhouse that is standing in between all of the houses. Look at that greenhouse. Can you see it? Then you notice, yes, the others are white, this one is green, right? Or you can point out something that is different, like there is a house whose windows are of a different color. And so those ways. So that we call the Swarup Lakshan. That is the actual nature of the object we are pointing out to, right? So if I say, look at the man and the woman going there, the one who is the man, the person who is Rama there, the person who is Rama is the one who is being followed by a woman in a ghungat. So that is Sitama, right? So there, what will happen? There I am pointing out whom? Ramji. Ramji I am pointing out by describing a nearby another person, describing a nearby person. So what is that lakshan? Anyone can tell what lakshan I am using here to point out Ramji?
Tatastha.
Tatastha Lakshan. Very good. Yeah? So Tatastha Lakshan, because I'm pointing out something nearby, right? Or so something not the part of the original person or the original object, but something indicative nearby, right? So in the case of Atma also, we cannot point out directly. Yeah? So we have to use something indicative. That is why we are going to do this exercise. Okay. So when we are using this method, if I say then similarly, Ramji is the one who is of very dark complexion, then it is Swarup Lakshan, right? The dark complexion one is Ramji. So let us take another example. So I say, there is a beautiful flower in the garden. Just look at it. Can you see it? Look, it's so nice. It's the one that has a round fence built around it. So what lakshan is there?
Tatastha.
Tatastha, right? Good. So now you are getting the hang of it. Good. So once you understand what is Tatastha Lakshan and Swarup Lakshan, you will be able to tell about how we are pointing out the object. So in the case of Atma, we use certain indicative words so that we can understand the nature of Atma, because Atma actually can never be captured in words. We use a technical name for it, Vang Manasa Agocharatvat. It is beyond the scope of the words Vang or Vani, and beyond the scope of the mind, Manas also, right? But still we can express it in the sense of negating all the objects around it, right? So like in India, when there is a newlywed couple, they are shown what we call the Arundhati star. Arundhati star. So when they are shown that Arundhati star is pointed out like it's a small star. So they usually go to a tree, and then whatever leaves of the tree are there from that shape, it is pointed out through the tree. Look at that branch. The one next to that branch is Arundhati. So there we are using what we call Tatastha Lakshan. We use a branch to point out that star, Arundhati. And why it is? Because it is said to be auspicious for a couple. Do you know, this is something not related to this, but do you know what is special about this Arundhati star? Maybe not. I don't think we would have heard it. So it is one of the unique stars in the world, in the sky, which is a twin star, where both the stars are rotating around each other. So it denotes a couple, how a couple should be in a married life. They should each be the center for each other. The wife should be the center of the universe for the husband should be. So that is why that Arundhati star is shown. So that is again an example of. Remember the first slide. Yeah. And then that is why it is shown in to the couple when they are newlywed. So that is example of Tatas Lakshmi, right? So when we study about the Atma, now we'll look at first at the consciousness part. So Chit Kim. So Chit, consciousness, if you try to understand, firstly, I think I'll share it because I wrote it down. And so there are 5 basically essential descriptions or properties of this consciousness that we see, right? So look at this part, consciousness. What is consciousness? So consciousness, first of all, there are 5 what we call properties of this consciousness. So consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Secondly, note this down. This you will find useful in every grantha. If you read the Gita, it will be there. So in Gita, if you go to the second chapter, then the Atma is being described by Bhagwan Krishna. There also he will use that. So in the 20th shloka of the Gita, the second chapter, न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्य शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. So very beautiful description of Atma. न जायते म्रियते वा. This Atma is never born and yet it never dies. Kadachit Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vana Bhuyan. It was never born or came into existence, and never will be a time when it will not exist. Ajo Nitya Shashvatoyam Purana. It is always existent, ever existent, unborn, and it is beyond limitation of time. Shashvat, it is never ending. I am Purana. It is existent from the oldest of times possible that you can imagine. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It will not end with the end of the body. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So this is indicative of the nature of this Atma, right? And so on, all of the verses starting from 18th right up to 25th. Maybe we'll, after this class, or maybe once we finish this portion, we can quickly go through that. It's a very beautiful section of the Gita. So first is consciousness is not a part, a product, or property of the body. Secondly, consciousness is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. An independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. Then consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. And then consciousness will continue to exist after the body is gone. And then the surviving consciousness is not detectable as the medium of the body is not available, right? So we'll look at the first one. Consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body, right? So first thing we have to understand, consciousness is not a part of the body. So just go back to this example. I showed you the light. So the light is pervading all through this hand, right? This consciousness is even more subtle, right? Why? Because consciousness is the one through which we can see this light. That means if consciousness can perceive, that means it is more subtle. That means it contains all the light of the universes, right? So that means if light is so subtle, space is so subtle, then consciousness is more subtle than either of them, right? So consciousness being subtle, it cannot be divided into parts. Let us look up at another very interesting exercise. You see this space around you, all of you. Maybe you might have asked this earlier also. So, just like all space is enclosed by some kind of walls, right? So this space that is there of this room, we can call the walls, the room space, right? Similarly, there is another, the drawing room space. There is another small space that is within a pot space. So if I ask you to there is a pot outside there, and I ask you to bring the pot space to me. I want you to bring that pot space to me. What will you do? How will you bring it?
I can only bring the pot, just not the space.
You cannot, but the space is here already, right? So you do only have to say mentally, you need to understand that, as you said rightly, that you cannot bring the space. The space is already here. It does not have any parts. The space is only single entity, full entity that is existing there. So this space that we see outside here is called what we call Bhutakash, the space of the where all the beings manifest, right? So this space can never be split into parts, right? But there are other spaces also. There is another space which we call the Swapnakash. When we go into the dream state, there is a different space there, right? So there is a different space. So because that is a different space, that means that uh, this space and that space they do not have any common point, right? So all the objects of that space are different. And then finally, in the deep space, what kind of space is there in the deep sleep? Is what space is there? Anyone has an idea what the name might be?
Chittakash?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Chittakash?
Chittakash is what you call the consciousness itself. So you have found a very nice, beautiful name, but actually in deep sleep there is no space. There is no space because there are no objects. No? There is no space where to be manifest. So in this place there is no. Yet through all of these, where there is no space, where there is the what we call the Swapna Akash. So the Swapna Akash, actually there are two terms we can use separately. There is the Chitta Akash, which you said, and there is the Chida Akash. So double the Chitta Akash is the space of the mind. So within that you can include the one of the dream state, right? So the dream state you can include in the Chitta Akash, and then the Chida Akash is not actually an Akasha, it is a consciousness itself, in which everything exists, right? So in a way, it is an akasha. So this now here, what we have to notice is, if the consciousness were to have any parts, then it would not be able to exist in all the three different akashas. All the akashas are different, but yet the consciousness is pervading through all of these. So that means there cannot be any part, right? And similarly, if we saw the example of the hand, then this light is not a part of this hand, right? It is not a part of the hand. So that means this consciousness not being a part of the hand means it is a separate entity from this hand. Again, similarly, it is not also a property of the hand. So this light also is not a property of the hand. But similarly, I can give you another example. Like you can take the example of a fan and electricity, right? So the electricity is making the fan run. So electricity is not a part of the fan, yet the fan is rotating because of the electricity. And similarly, the electricity can run all the instruments in the house. The electricity can run the lights, it can run your AC, it can run your fan, and so many other heating instruments also. So electricity is not a part of the hand, a part of the fan or the instruments. Similarly, this light also is not a part. So consciousness being even more subtler, इन सब से भी सूक्ष्म है. Is more sukshma than all of these. That means the consciousness is not a part or property or product of all of these. So we come to property next. What is property? Property is a swabhava or a guna of something, we call it. So what is a property of something is one thing that cannot be separated from it, anything, right? So let us assume the inverse. Let us assume the opposite thing. If we assume that this consciousness is a property of the body. So if it is a property of the body, that means the body will never die because the consciousness will never leave the body, right? So that is why the consciousness cannot be a property of the body. Similarly, it cannot also be part, product, property and product also. It cannot be a product of the body. A lot of scientists, they have tried to replicate the conditions of the initial state of the earth, where they mix a lot of chemicals together and they pass the current through them. It's called the Michelson-Morley experiment, if you can read about it. Then in that experiment, they showed that a lot of organic products can be produced by running that current through them. But again, those organic products can never bring life. Never can two products come together and bring life. You can bring about any amount of non-living chemicals or products. Never in history or never is it logically possible to produce a living organism by bringing them together. You can bring together the organic stuff, but still the organic chemicals, but still life is never produced. So never is it possible for you to produce what we call consciousness. Right. So a lot of arguments are there. We see in Nyaya also to prove all this in a detailed manner. I will not go into that much detail, but for now we can simply understand easily that it never is possible for consciousness to be a product of any, because otherwise what is happening is the second part of the logic is this, that if any of those two products, let us say it's used by some, that the mind and mind in contact with the body produces the consciousness. This is one logic given by what we call charvaka. Charvaka are the one who don't believe in anything that is visible. So in fact, for them, even mind is not a real entity. Only by inference they assume it. So there also, if the mind and the body were to come together, then it could happen later also, no, after the body died. And never does it happen that once the life has left the body, then it will come back. Never it happens, right? Always there will be some life left which can be revived, but never can life be freshly brought back into the body. So consciousness is never a part, product, or property of the body. So what does that mean? What is the next logical inference? Consciousness is an independent principle that pervades and enlivens the body. That is the second rule, right? So just like this property of the body, and the second one is it is an independent principle that pervades and enlivens the body. So consciousness being an independent principle or entity, because of its presence, everything becomes alive. Because of its presence, everything has life, right? And that life also is, no, we are not talking about prana, the life force. The life force is again what we call non-sentient. It is jada, because it at one point in time, it will end or it will stop moving. So any Shakti, which we call, Shakti is there wherever it is present. After some time, it will go away. Also, if something increases and decreases, that prana shakti is always, sometimes it is less, sometimes more. So it is never it is never in a continuous fixed state. So that means something, whatever is changing, we can now give a simple word for that. It is non-sentient. It is jada. And all the rest is consciousness. The consciousness is the opposite of that. So all the objects of the world, including my prana and all my five koshas and whatever we saw, they are all non-sentient. But consciousness is something separate and apart from them. And because we have seen that consciousness is so subtle that everything is contained within this consciousness, So that means the next logical conclusion is not, it is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Again, we can go back to the hand example. The light is not limited by the boundaries of the hand. It is there everywhere, right? Wherever there is some object, then I can perceive the light. Otherwise, the light is always there, but it's just that I don't perceive. Or similarly, if you're looking at the other example, the fan example, there also the electricity is not limited by the boundaries of the instrument. So it is passing through the fan, it is passing through the tube light. So that is why whenever there is no electricity, none of these will run. So we use another word for this, another definition for this. How do we recognize something that is not visible? We call it, you can call it Shakti, you can call it the sense organs, Indriya, anything, any kind of Shakti is only judged through the effect it produces. So we say Shakti Karya Anumeya. Shakti Karya Anumeya. So any Shakti can be known only by the effect. So whenever the fan is running, then only we can know that the electricity is there. Electricity is always there. But when we can only know when there is an instrument there to use that electricity and produce some effect from the electricity. Similarly, this light is always there. So uh, this consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body, and it will also continue to exist after the body is gone, the fourth one. Why? Because this light, it doesn't depend on the hand. So the consciousness, again, as I said, being more subtler than all of these, it is so subtle that it will continue to exist after this body is gone. So if the fan is not there, if the light is not there, then the electricity is still there, right? So it is there in the socket. You can maybe switch it on. So you can, or you can put your finger inside it and then you'll get instant moksha. Instant release. Okay. So then you will definitely know the electricity is there, right? So this consciousness will continue to exist long after the body is gone also. And then why is it not then perceived? Because there is no medium. So the fifth rule, the surviving consciousness is not detectable as the medium of the body is not available. So parts of this is taken from the Bhashyam of the 20th to the 23rd verse, Shankaracharya's Bhashyam, and then part from Drigdishya Vivek also. So all of these rules are condensed from all the different shastras. So these are just to give us a very clear and undiluted picture of what consciousness is, right? So once you understand that this consciousness is infinite, so this fifth rule we can expand a little bit more. This consciousness is not detectable. It is not detectable because the medium is not there. Because this medium, when it is gone, then we are not able to tell it is there, but that does not mean it is not there, right? So the surviving consciousness will not be detectable. It needs some kind of medium for it to manifest itself, right? So now we understand what one very important concept about this consciousness is. Firstly, it is available everywhere. Secondly, because it is available everywhere, I cannot put a boundary to it, right? Because everything that we see or perceive has what we call a form or a shape. आकार होता है. आकार व्यंगिका जाति. Anything I can put into a classification or a jati, it will have to have an akar, right? So I will have, if I am able to classify something, I need to put it into some kind of form. So consciousness, we can never visualize a form for this. I can visualize the form of all the objects around me. I can visualize the form of my own body. I can visualize my sense organs, how they are functioning, where they are functioning. Can I visualize my thoughts? Do my thoughts have a shape? Yes or no? Thoughts have a shape. Thoughts also have a shape. A thought will define an object. And so when it is defining an object, it will have a shape. The shape of the object itself, in fact. Right? So thoughts also, all our thoughts also have a shape. That is why we are able to perceive them. Otherwise, we will not be able to perceive. Whatever does not have a shape we will not be able to perceive. And whenever something has a shape, we have to always remember there are two intertwining things that are acting together, then only we are able to perceive the shape. We will look at it more in the when we discuss about Sat. But right now we are sticking to consciousness, so Chit. So this whenever we are perceiving the shape of any object, right? So there are two things that need to be present. We call them guna and dravya. Guna and dravya. And we also say that they are interdependent. Anyo anya ashritva. So whenever an object is to be perceived, we need to it needs to have certain properties. Then only we can perceive. So all of these properties we saw in the section on the Gyanendriya. Each Gyanendriya is able to perceive one guna, right? So all the five Gyanendriyas, one guna each. So when these gunas are present, then only I can perceive. This remote I can perceive because it has a certain shape and because it has a certain color. If it didn't have the color, if it didn't have any color, then I would not be able to perceive this, right? So this consciousness then is the opposite. It does not have any guna, no properties, without any properties. So it is without any properties that means we cannot perceive because actually it is not the object to be perceived. It is the perceiver. It is the perceiver. So this consciousness, firstly, it doesn't have any shape. Secondly, it is infinite, all pervading. So it being infinite, that means we can never limit this consciousness. We can never put it into a box. We can never control it, right? It is the controller of everything. So just like we saw in the five koshas, we go to the koshas, the inner one controls the outer one. So the consciousness is the innermost, sukshma tamam, the highest degree of sukshma. So that makes it infinite. So whatever we saw in the definition of stool and sukshma also, whatever is sukshma will have smaller size but be more pervading. It will cover more area, right? So the one that is the most subtle, सबसे सूक्ष्म जो है, it will cover infinite area. It is infinite. All areas lie within it. So this consciousness, now we understood clearly, it is the one through which everything is perceived. It is the one which is making everything function, and it is the one by which all knowledge is also occurring. So this consciousness is now infinite. That is one essential aspect we are adding to it, right? So once we understand this, next we can go on to this next part of it, which we will look at Sat. So I'll just bring that up again so we can understand the different aspects. You have read it, it's just one line, so nothing much to be seen there. So Sat Kim. So Sat is, we are using a very interesting term to define it, time. Kalatraye api tishtati iti sat. It is there in all three states of times. So what are these three states of time? Let us look at it. A very interesting to understand time. Ye samay kya hai? What is this time? Right? So what is this time? We usually say kalatraye api tishtati iti sat. It is there in all three states of time. So when is this past? When is this present? And when is the future? So like we are sitting here together. What can you call as the past? Let us say few days back, yesterday and the earlier days, right? That is the past. And the future is something after today. After today. But then, is it just that? No. The past is something immediately preceding this, right? Exactly. So it can be 1 hour before. We can keep dividing it into smaller and smaller and smaller units. So you can divide it into seconds or milliseconds or nanoseconds or whatever divisions you like. So ultimately, whatever stage you reach, that means that there is one nanosecond before that, which will be called the past, and another nanosecond, which will be after that, we'll call the future. And the current is that nanosecond. So that is the speed with which this time is moving. That is that is the way time is changing so fast. So that, what does that mean? That there is some substratum for it beyond on which this time is visible, right? So when we actually see this time in this sense, like I said, there are two fingers of my hand. With what is between them? There is some space. So that fingers are visible. There is something on the background by which it is visible. Yeah. So because of that, it becomes visible. So that is that thing that exists between the smallest of periods of time. That is what we call Sat. It is there in all the periods of time, right? So actually, time is, we say, just a concept. Time is understood by the relative motion of two different objects. So in that way, there is actually no past, present, or time. There is only one present only, because you can never separate it from this current moment to the past or the present or future. Never can you separate. It is always one continuous flow. So actually it is one time only. We just define it into different moments by the relative motions of different objects, relative positions, right? So for the sun, it will be a different size of a day. For the moon, it will be a different size of a day. For another planet, it will be a different size of a day. All of them will have, for them, time is different. That is why we, even in the, we'll come to understand later when we understand bit more of this consciousness, that this consciousness is functioning at the absolute level. It is the infinite consciousness. But then it is functioning also through the more larger beings that we call the Devatas. So there also it is covering a very big area that consciousness is able to function through. Then it is also functioning through some smaller beings, right? So the Yaksha, Gandharva, Kinnar, and all of them are also subtle beings. The Pitars. So all of them. So it then again for us and the smaller beings, for a cheetah, for an ant, it is an even smaller time. So what we have a very interesting concept of time in our scriptures. We call it yuga. Yuga. So Yuga is, most people know, they have heard of the Puranic calculations of one Yuga being 432 lakh years. So all that is also very, very correct. But Yuga is not a static unit of time. Yuga can be 1 millisecond, it can be trillions of years. A Yuga is basically the time interval between two events. Right? So for a human, a yuga is a different size. For a devata, a yuga is a different size. I see many people on Facebook, quarreling like crazy over, what the length of the yuga is. Someone says, some very famous guy, I will not name, I have his books also, and he will say the yuga is of 5 years. Someone is saying, yeah, 5 years? Yeah, 5 years. So all of them, and then he will criticize, no, the Shastri calculation of 4,32,000 years for one Kali Yuga is wrong. So how can you criticize Shastra? That means you have not gone about it in the right way. Right. So Yuga is again very flexible unit of time. It is used in different lengths. So we have in the Shastra, the proper calculation is given. Whatever is one day for human is 30 of those days will become one day for the Pitars, and so on. So for each one, the Yuga or the time period is different. So in this way, this consciousness defines time. Time does not define consciousness. That is what we have to understand very clearly. So that means this consciousness again is present existence. Existence is present all through time at all spaces. And then it is also present in the between all spaces that we can think of, everywhere. So in a way, again, we are seeing this is also infinite. So let us look at it in another beautiful way, another nice way. So when I look at any object, I just put this, I can express this in a sentence. This remote is, that means it exists, right? So this represents the object. Then the remote represents the shape of the object, and is represents the existence. It exists, right? So is, we call isness, is there in every object. This isness is what we call existence, right? So it is there in the object in front of me. The laptop is. this table is, the bed is, the space in between me and the uh, TV is. So wherever I go, I can see lots of objects, I can see lots of spaces. In spite of all that, there is one common thing that goes through all of them, and that is the existence. Right? So when I similarly mentally remove the space, the objects will not go away. I can conceptually and mentally remove all the objects around me. Mentally, I can remove. So once I remove them, what will I be able to understand? That there are shapes are many, existence is one. Wherever I go from infinitely in either direction, there I will always have existence. Existence exists infinitely in all directions, right? So this way we can understand that this existence also is there infinitely all directions everywhere. That means it is again also an infinite entity, and that is represented by the third one, that is represented by the third statement, which we call anandam. How? I'll just explain. So anandakaha sukh swarupa. So anandaha and anantam are all are synonyms, we say in Shastra. Why? Because Ananda represents the infinitude of my reality, right? The infinite, that it is infinite, right? So when it is infinite, I have expressed this earlier also. Then if I, because here when we are saying Satchit Anand is Atma Swarup, Atma Swarup is what? Atma Swarup is me, I, right? So if this Atma Swarupa is infinite, that means nothing is outside of me. When do I get joy in this world? Sukha, when I attain an object, right? And I feel I have become complete. This object is completing. I get joy, right? But when all the objects are within me only, nothing is separate from me, then where is the question of getting a joy from attaining an object? So then my joy becomes ananda. Then it is not simply simple sukha, it actually becomes ananda. The difference, sukha is objective joy, ananda is infinite joy, the joy of knowledge, the joy of knowing my true nature. So in this way, ananda and anantatvam is, uh, they are representing the same thing. So there is a very beautiful story. I'll just come to that next. But if we conclude here, then all these three will represent. That means that the chit is infinite, sat is infinite, ananda also is a product of my infinite knowledge, knowing the knowledge that I am infinite, right? So can there be two infinites? Is it possible? If there were two infinites, they will limit each other. If there are two infinites, they will limit each other. That means there cannot be two infinite. So what does this mean? This means that this mind-boggling truth that this existence and consciousness and ananda are in fact one only. They are not separate names for a different thing, or they are not separate parts of anything. They are all three same only. Because of the world, I perceive them as separate, because I know through consciousness, because everything exists because of Sat, because there is joy because of Ananda. So because of that, I think of them as three separate entities or three separate manifestations of Atma. Three separate manifest, but actually they all three are same, right? So once a student wanted to understand this, he goes to a guru. Hmm. So he goes to a guru, and the guru says, he explains this thing, that this consciousness is infinite. So he says, what is my relationship to this consciousness? What is the relationship between me and God? So what is that relationship? So he said, is it clear to you that you have understood that this consciousness or your this consciousness is infinite? He says, yes. So that means it is there within, it is also there within all the parts of your body. He said, yes. He said, is it within every cell of your body? Yes. Is it there in all the spaces also between the cells of your body? Yes. Is it there in every part of every cell of your body? Said, yes. Then he says, okay, understood, clear. Then where are you? तुम कहाँ हो? You do not exist. The thing that you think of yourself, this mind body complex, this does not exist. Everything is consciousness only. It is your misconception that you think, it is your ego that thing that makes you think that I am a separate entity, because you function through some projection from a hologram that has been projected, and from while functioning through that, you think of your consciousness as this body. In fact, this you as a separate entity, you do not exist. That is the clear logical inference from this. So once we clearly understand the nature of our true self, then we cease to, run after the objects of the world. We cease to destroy ourselves daily by the pain that we give ourselves from not attaining everything, for the pain that we get from not getting what we call manam, not getting the respect. Every time I feel I should be respected. Why? I am Atma. If I feel that, then all the respect and disrespect belongs to this body. This body is jada. It will go back into the elements after you are gone. Why do you have to? You will be not carrying that respect. And that is the essence of all the reasons why I keep getting born again and again and again and again into this world. So once, if I have to break this cycle, I have to know my true nature. I have to understand my true nature, and I have to go into it with such depth that I'm able to give up all my association with the objects outside of me, give up all the association with the objects within me, and give up all the sense of ego that derives from that, the ego sense of aham karta iti manyate. I am the doer. I am doing something. Everything the devtas are doing. Understand it clearly. It is the forces within me, the conscious forces within me that are doing everything. I am not doing anything. It is the Surya Devta who is seeing. It is the Agni Devta who is speaking. So and so on. It is the Dig Devta who is for seeing hearing the sound. So all of these uh, activities that I associate that I am doing, they are all being done only by the devtas or the divine powers. So once I hold on to this thought, I am imbued with a calm, and then whatever is needed for my conscious survival in the world becomes very easy, because it all becomes, I am an instrument of the Lord. When I am an instrument of the Lord, then it is the Lord's duty to help me function well in the world, to help me do better all the things that I want to do in the world. When I let myself surrender to the Lord, even a smallest of sankalpa will bear fruit instantly. I feel I am seeing so many people in pain around me. I don't have to go around and ameliorate the pain of each and every person around me. With my honest and good sankalpa, the pain of everyone who deserves to lose that pain, who deserves to get comfort, with my sankalpa itself it will happen. I don't have to do it physically. The Lord is there. He will make me do whatever I have to do physically. He will also make other people also do whatever they have to do. I cannot, मैंने पूरी दुनिया का ठेका नहीं ले सकता. It is the Lord. The moment I take up this doership, I have to do these things, I will fail. Right? I will fail, and miserably at that. But once I let myself become an instrument of the Lord, then I can do so many things that I never thought possible. I can visualize that knowledge which no one ever thought possible. Whenever I go inside and whenever I listen to that voice within me and that knowledge that I get from me, then I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about anyone who meditates this way. Then everyone can see that all knowledge is coming from that source only. We don't know a single thing. All knowledge is coming from that Atma, that consciousness only. And once we surrender to that, there is no limit to the amount of knowledge or the kind of knowledge that can become available to us. And that is the essence of the Upanishadic verses that say the one who has known Brahman becomes Brahman, or the one who's known Brahman knows everything. It's not just that he understands the essence of everything. Essence of everything is Atma is understood. But actually, the knower of Atma is the one who surrendered himself completely. And then with that surrender, all the knowledge of the world, whatever is needed for you at a particular point of time, of course, you don't need all the knowledge of the world all the time. It is the Lord who needs all the knowledge to run the universe. Ishvara, but I am not Ishvara. So for me, whatever knowledge is needed, Lord will make instantly available for me. Of course, my surrender should be complete. Surrender what? That I am not holding on to my identifications. That is surrender. The moment I give up my identifications, I become bigger. And not just bigger, I become infinite. So when I when I surrender my feelings of smallness, when I give up my feelings of limitedness, then I become an instrument of the Lord. I myself become infinite. So whenever we surrender to someone higher, the power of that higher comes to us. I surrender to a guru, his whole knowledge comes to me. I surrender to my family, their whole power comes behind me. I surrender to my company that I'm working for, the whole company's power comes to me. That we'll see more in Samashti Vyashti Viveka. That is when we go to the Samashti part. But just for now, the moment I understand my true nature, my nature of consciousness, I am able to bring out a power that I had never thought possible before within me. I am able to live my life with the highest joy without being, without, the ups and downs that come with life. The ups and downs will only produce more amusement. Oh Lord, this is a new play by you. Whenever we see a movie, we see all the ups and downs of the characters. We don't get ourselves upset. Oh, maybe momentarily, but not really. So we enjoy that. Similarly, we can enjoy the whole world also as a movie. So we'll continue a bit more into this in the next class. So time is up for today. Uh, but we'll just conclude to the final line of this part. Oh, it's not here in the text. I'll just read from my text. So Evam Satchidanand Swarupam Swatmanam Vijaniyat. So, in this way, I should visualize myself, Swatmanam, Swa Atmanam, as Satchidanand Swarup. This Satchidanand Swarup that I'm talking about is not something separate from me. It is my own true nature. Once I know my own true nature as Satchidanand Swarupaha, then my right, sense of limitations is totally removed and I am able to function with highest freedom, and that highest freedom is in fact called moksha, the freedom to function while being in the world. Moksha is not something I get after death, it is there in while living only. So the meaning of it itself means being able to live in total freedom, right? So we'll conclude today's class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.